Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you on this Wednesday, what is really a football Friday on this Thanksgiving weekend, on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube. First, let me take this time on this Wednesday to wish everybody a happy and healthy and safe Thanksgiving, wherever you're spending it, whatever traveling you're doing, do it safely. And hopefully you have a nice weekend and get to see some decent football, which will begin with a not a bad schedule for Thanksgiving. So many times through the years, we have gone through. Uh, a Thanksgiving schedule where you just have the two games, and the Lions would obviously be terrible. Cowboys might be playing a weak opponent. Maybe they were going to really just lay over an opponent when they were real good, or some of the years when they weren't real good. Now we have the third game. Now, also we have a very different conversation because in the past, as the Lion game was a backdrop and everyone was waiting for the Dallas game, usually the Lions were getting beat up by somebody, might be Peyton Manning, somebody put on a good show or whatever, that rare game they would win in Detroit. But now the conversation tomorrow will be about whether or not this Lion team is the best team in the NFL and is clearly steamrolling to a Super Bowl. And the question that everyone wants to answer should be answered in the affirmative. The answer is yes. I would expect them tomorrow. Despite the fact the Bears have shown a little more life, they've lost 5 games in a row. They do not match up well with this Detroit team, which has an incredibly explosive offense behind what is the premier offensive line in the league. Now, Philly's offensive line has really played well lately. You saw that in this on display against the Rams. The Denver offensive line is much improved, but without question, the best offensive line in the league is Detroit's, and it is really the force that starts everything. Then you go to the quarterback, then you go to the tandem at running back, and then you go to all the wide receivers, and then of course to the tight end and Sam Laporta, and you have a tremendous offense that is averaging over 32 points a game, can put 50 up on anybody, can get 200 yards rushing on anybody, and they are looking to make a statement every time they take a field. This is a coaching staff and a franchise that right now is possessed. They have waited a very long time for this. This city has waited a very long time for this. This team has never been to a Super Bowl. Remember, if you go back to the 50s, this was a proud, dynastic franchise that used to win championships. It's been a very long haul for this team, and now they are there. They are there, and they are going to be very hard to beat. The Packers are dangerous. The Eagles are playing better. The Vikings have to be taken seriously. They're 9-2 right now. I wouldn't take anybody seriously in the West. San Francisco has a lot of issues and a lot of injuries. So the bottom line is, will Detroit roll this into the Super Bowl? I think they will. I think they will, and I think they're going to be a lot of lopsided games. And I would look for them to put on a show tomorrow. I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised if they don't put up 35 points. I wouldn't be surprised if they put up 45 points on the Bears tomorrow, in what will probably be a high scoring game. As we said, the Lions 10-1. Their schedule is not easy the rest of the way, but they are commanding, and they keep beating teams by significant margins week after week. And hey, they are right now within 3 points of doubling their opponents' points produced this year. Teams that do that, first of all, it's very rare. Go look at how they finish. Go find the teams, take the standings, look at points for, points against, find a year where the team was 2-1 or better, and then see where they finished. You get an interesting historical perspective there. The Giants and the Cowboys will renew their rivalry. It's been very one sided for the Cowboys. A lot of injuries for Dallas, which is coming off a wild win against Washington. The Giants were embarrassed again, this time with Tommy at quarterback, and it looks like he will not be there tomorrow. Tommy Cutlets, it looks like, will sit tomorrow out. He didn't even go with the team to Dallas because of the injury. He sat out the walkthrough. He is expected to go to Dallas, but I don't think he's going to dress tomorrow, and I don't think he's going to play. I think you're going to see Locke at quarterback. Locke was very upset when he wasn't named the quarterback, and let's be honest, Locke's a better quarterback. You'll see that tomorrow. But they have got to. The key to this game tomorrow, twofold. Giants can run the ball a little bit with Tracy. Cowboys can't run the ball very well. Which team is going to protect its quarterback? Now, Dallas usually does, but their offensive line is banged up against the Giants' pass rush, which has talent. On the other side, the Giants can't protect their line. They can't protect their quarterback against anything. Uh, how they do against the Dallas pass rush tomorrow is going to be the key to the game. If the Giants can get some time to get the ball off, they're going to move the ball. If they can't, well, then you have what you had last week, where Bucks were blitzing like crazy and knocking the quarterback down, especially in the first half when they had 30 yards passing, and were outscored 23-0. The game went to 30-0, and then the Giants did add one touchdown, so they didn't get shut out. But it was another embarrassing performance. And now tomorrow they're there with the Cowboys, but again with their third quarterback of the season, with Lockett quarterback because of the injury. Now the third game, it's a good one, but the weather is going to be a factor. People are very divided on Tua for a lot of reasons. But one thing you can't dispel, when he is behind center for the Dolphins, they score a lot of points. Okay? Since he's come back, he's been 11 touchdowns, one intercept. The team has started winning. They're playing well. They've won 3 games by 8, by 15, by 19. They're 5-6. They think they can get to the playoffs. They have a big game against the Packers tomorrow. They'll move the ball on the Packers. The Packers will move the ball on them. Packers getting a great year out of Jacobs, and Love, who is mistake prone, can throw the ball with the best of them. One problem tomorrow, Tua has really struggled in the cold, and tomorrow he's going to get cold and wind. The wind chill is going to be somewhere around 10 degrees at game time. Temperature is going to be in the low 20s. With the wind, it's going to be about a 10-degree wind chill. You know what? These guys from Florida don't usually play well in that situation. Will Tua play well? If you were under normal circumstances, if this game was played in Miami, I'd expect a very good game, maybe in a Miami win. Under these conditions, I have to think it's going to be really the essence will be the Packer ground game, and the Packers get the edge because of the cold. Tua has trouble in the wind. His ball has trouble fluttering through the wind. He doesn't throw the ball very hard, as we know. He is more of a placement and timing quarterback, which he does superbly with the guys he has. You know, the way he utilizes Hill and Waddle, and of course Ashawn, who is very dangerous, running it and catching it, at 2 more touchdowns last week. Didn't have a lot of yards last week, but had 2 more touchdowns. Big game, important game, but the weather's going to play a factor, no question about it. Before I get to the Black Friday game, of course, the NFL has to bust in now on every national day. This being Black Friday, nobody works on the Friday after Thanksgiving, so it's kind of a holiday. Of course, it's the traditional shopping day for the ladies. Um, Before we get to them barging in there and putting the game on, which they will, one note: Danny Jones has signed with the Vikings. Now, he signed really as an insurance policy. He's on the practice squad. He is not going to dress unless there's an injury. He will be in there in their discussions for next year. He will get a chance to compete for the job next year, is the plan. And he will be the insurance policy for this year if something happens to Donald. If Donald doesn't get hurt, Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback. I mean, doesn't get hurt, Daniel Jones isn't going to play this year. Donald's going to be the quarterback as long as he's healthy. Now, here's the one thing people haven't talked about much, and the Vikings, with their 9-2 record, have not gotten a ton of attention. And a lot of people have even been critical of Sam, despite the fact he does turn the ball over too much, but he has gotten the ball in the end zone and he's gotten his team's wins, which is what the quarterback's supposed to do. There's a very good chance Sam's going to price himself out of Minnesota. And there's two quarterbacks who may be pushing to up their price tag. Jameis Winston's one who could do that in Cleveland, and Donald could make it hard for the Vikings to re-sign him. I think the Vikings feel he will, because there'll be teams out there that'll want to give him some more money, and he'll get a little better payday, and that's what he's looking for, is that payday for next year. But that's next year. They have to deal with this year, and Jones is now the insurance policy. Raiders and Chiefs on Friday. O'Connell will start because of the injury. Raiders an abysmal 2-9. The Chiefs own them. Chiefs are 10-1. They won another close game, this time against Carolina. They continue to play down to their opponents on a weekly basis, but they continue to win these one-score games time after time after time. They're 10-1. They'll get to 11-1, but they've been anything but impressive. Pacheco's coming back this week, so you will see a hard-stomping, familiar figure in the Chiefs' background, as Pacheco will now give them a 1-2 punch at running back with Hunter, who has been very good. Moving to Sunday, the Seahawks and the Jets. Seahawks defense playing better. They're in the running for the playoffs. Geno Smith is up and down. There's been a lot of talk about sitting or IRing Rodgers. I don't know if that's in the plans. We just don't know. Rodgers this week said if he's going to play next year, and he hasn't made a commitment to play, but if he is, he'd like to play for the Jets. He did dispel that. Looks like the Jets are going to put Tyron Smith on injured reserve. So that left tackle did not have the year he should have had, and he's been banged up with the neck injury for weeks, and now it looks like he could be done for the season. Also, Hall is hurt. Breece Hall is hurt. He's a game time decision. We don't know yet if he will play against the Seahawks, who desperately need the game. There's nothing to get excited about the Jets. You just want to see it. You know they are dangerous now that they're out of it. They can upset somebody because the games are usually close. Let's see what happens. Chargers and the Falcons, both coming off defeats. Chargers had a tough second half against the Ravens last week, and they lost Dobbins. Dobbins has always been injury prone. He was having a really good year. He's got a sprained MCL. He's week to week, but he won't play this week. Falcons need to get back on track. They've lost 2 games in a row, and Tampa has an easy schedule. So despite the fact that Falcons had opened up a good lead, Falcons got to get back to their business. Big game there. Chargers and the Falcons, both teams with playoff aspirations. The Steelers renew their rivalry with the Bengals. They're 8-3. The Bengals are 4-7. Cincy, let's be honest, they're gonna have to run the table. They're capable of beating anybody. We know that, but they have to run the table, which means their defense is going to have to show up. They, after playing the Steelers this week, they're at Dallas, at Tennessee, home to the Browns. All very winnable games. Then Denver comes in, another winnable game. So if they can beat Pittsburgh on Sunday, Dallas, Tennessee, Browns, Broncos, they can win all those games. Then it comes down to what they do at Pitt. So they play Pitt twice. Pitt's going to decide their fate tomorrow, and then the last game of the season. Cards at 6-5. Hard to figure. Up 1 week, down the next week. Vikings 9-2. As I said, many a quiet 9-2. For a 9-2 team, you don't hear a lot of. You hear about the Eagles, you hear about the Bills, 2 lost teams. You don't hear a lot about the Vikings, but they keep winning. I don't think anybody takes them and Sam Darnold seriously. That's why. Titans and Washington. Washington has come back to earth. Tough loss last week. Get the game tied up on that amazing touchdown reception, 86 yards, and then miss the extra point. Unbelievable. Then the kick returns, crazy. Um, Washington needs a win against Tennessee. They should be able to get it. The Texans are 7-5. They are not playing well. This is not a pushover game against the Jags, and they should get Trevor Lawrence back. I still see the Jags as the most likely spot for Belichick next year. Uh, he has a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. He's got a team he can build. He has a very rich owner who will pay him handsomely and does not interfere. I think that's the most likely spot for him. Rams 5-6. Here's the Rams. They got a quarterback who can pull the trigger. They got two great receivers. They have a good running back. Their lines are awful. They can't stop the run. They can't protect their quarterback. That's why they're going nowhere. Saints are 4-7. They have their moments. Bucks 5-6 off their big win against the Giants. Bucks are actually better than 5-6, especially offensively. They're getting a lot of productivity out of their quarterback. Panthers are 3-8. Almost won the game last week. Young is playing better. Team is playing better. Hubbard's running the ball better. Defense is playing more consistently. They're not getting blown out as they were early in the season. They're making strides. So they're not a pushover right now. Eagles 9-2 off that impressive win against the Rams and that brilliant performance by Barkley, who has a shot. And I think there's no reason he won't get it behind that line for 2,000 yards rushing. Who would have thought it? 2,000 yards rushing. They get the Ravens, who were impressive in the second half last week. Ravens can run it on anybody. Eagles can run it on anybody. Eagles can move it on the Ravens. Ravens can move it on the Eagles. First one to 35 wins. I mean, that's the game that those are two very good teams. Those are two very impressive offenses. Going to be a very good game. San Francisco, all banged up. With hearing Purdy's probably going to play, they're in Buffalo. Buffalo, let's be honest, they've already clinched their division for all intents and purposes. They still have their eyes and their aspirations on the number one seed. They'd rather play Kansas City if they have to see them again in their building. They'd rather play a Ravens team or whoever else they might see, a Steeler team in their own building. So obviously they'd like to play for that. They should have a big leg up on the Niners, who are about to win. See, I would think that if they lose this game this week, the Niners are going to cash their chips for the season. I don't think they will fight. I think they will fall apart. I really do. Um, their history is not to just make the playoffs. The history is either to be good or to take the year off. I think they might wind up taking this year off. They've had a lot of injuries. And then Monday night, the Browns, who can get a good performance out of Jameis Winston. You don't know how motivated the defense is when it goes on the road. At home, it seems to get motivated. Will it get motivated here against the Broncos? Broncos are playing well. Their offensive line has gelled. Their quarterback has really matured. Their coaching is strong. They're playing good football, and right now, they could be headed to the postseason. I don't think there's any question about that. They have a big game with the Colts next week, and that'll tell a lot. It really will. That will tell a lot because you know the Colts finish up with some very easy games. They really do, and to me, that will really give them a chance to get to 10 wins. They are 5-7 right now. They got the Pats this week. I think right now the Pats are the worst team in the league. They have their moments here and there. They beat the Jets, but I don't think they're going to win the game. Uh, Last week they were not competitive against the Dolphins. Colts need this game desperately. Uh, if the Colts get to 6-7 here, if they can win next week in Denver, their last three games are against Tennessee, the Jaguars, and the Giants. Not in that order. Not in that order because they play a division game last, but they play the Giants, Jaguars, and Tennessee in the last three games. Those are all winnable games for the Colts. So the Colts at 5-7. That is a very, very big game coming up next week against Denver. I'm assuming that they win against New England because if they can't beat New England, why bother? And the Colt game, I should note, is in week 15 because the Colts have a bye next week. So that game is with the Broncos is in week 15, not next week, because the Colts. Let me see if the Broncos are off too. Next week off is Broncos and Colts. You have Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Pats, and Commanders off next week. Nobody's off this week. The reason why is Thanksgiving week. You have three games on Thursday. You have a game on Friday. You got a game on Monday. You don't want to have no games on Sunday. So they don't give any buys this week. So everybody's playing, and that's why, because you have a Friday game, three Thursday games, and then, of course, the Browns and Broncos on Monday night, which is a diehard game, I understand. And even the Sunday night game, because do you trust San Francisco now even? Against the Bills, as banged up as they are, you don't know his Purdy's status for sure yet. The best game of the weekend is the Eagles and the Ravens. Other than that, you like the Chargers and the Falcons, the Steelers and the Bengals. And the Dolphins and the Packers should be a very good game. Those are the very good games this week. I think that Eagles and the game I would like to see the most this week is probably Eagles Ravens. I think that game is very, very interesting. It really is. All right, so let me tell you about the squares first, then we'll get to some emails and a couple other things as we head towards this Thanksgiving holiday on this Wednesday, week 13 already. Amazing. In the National Football League. You always hear me talk about it. You can place your same game parlays on college football, and you're running out of time in the regular season. The playoffs start on December 20th. We will handle the playoffs extensively, and I think as a TV product, the playoffs are going to be a resounding success. College football is the one sport. NFL's on is on its own level. College football is the only other sport that is trending up in the ratings on TV, where it's actually really staking a claim. And this product that is now the 12-team playoff, I'm sure they'll have to work some kinks out. I'm sure some people won't like how they seeded this year. But the bottom line is it is going to be captivating, and it's going to, I think, do really, really well. And the other thing that helps it this year is there's not one team that's just dominant. It's wide open. Players can place their same game parlays on college football and the NFL games to earn squares. The exclusive squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and some $10,000 jackpots where you connect with the number and you could win up to $10,000 in bonus money. So it's just a little added attraction. Go to the Bet Rivers app, download it, and away you go. All right. As we said, emails, Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Let's see what's on your mind. Sean, I think he starts most weeks for us, Sean. I think he tries to get in there first. The Cowboys playing on TV on Thanksgiving every year. How big a factor was that for the Dallas getting the name America's team? It was the whole thing. The whole thing. Tex Schramm, the Cowboys in the days of yore, they started as a franchise. Okay. And the first couple of years in the early 60s with Landry, who was a Giant defensive coordinator who left to go to Dallas and start the franchise there. The Cowboys had a couple tough years. Now they're starting to build the team. They're right about the time they're getting the team built. It was owned by a guy named Clint Murchison. He had three people who ran the franchise. He had The great Tom Landry, one of the historic figures in the history of the NFL as a coach. If you want to know if something was developed, who developed it in the NFL, just answer Paul Brown or Tom Landry. One or the other innovated it, no matter what it is. Landry was one of the great coaches, handful of coaches. He one of the great coaches of all time. Consistency. All right, people thought he was didn't have personality, worried too much about computer printouts and all that stuff. He was the first one to get into that stuff. His team made the playoffs every year, and they were always competitive. You know, you think about it. Tom Landry won 2 Super Bowls. He lost 3 Super Bowls and 2 championship games to the Packers, which would have been walkaway winners again in Super Bowl 1 and 2. They would have won the same way the Packers won. So he could have easily won anywhere from 7 down to 5. He won 2 Super Bowls. He won them both easily. He won 24-3 over the Dolphins, where his defense dominated. He won 27-10 over the Broncos. Um, both easy wins. They lost 2 games to the Steelers, 35-31 and 21-17. They scared the Steelers in one game. It was 31. It was 35-17, and they made it 35-31 and put a real scare, and it was a brilliant performance by Starbuck. Um, in the 21-17 game, Starbuck was thrown for the end zone and just tipped the ball off Percy Howard's hand. Um, they lost 2 crushing games to the Packers, including the Ice Bowl. And they lost a game where they committed, I should know, but it's either 5 or 6 turnovers, and lost to the Colts on the Jim O'Brien field goal in Super Bowl 5. They were the best team by a mile. Their defense was unbelievable. Um, and they lost by a field goal, and they committed either 5 or 6 turnovers, one or the other. Um, he could have easily won 7 championships. He won 2. Um, you had Gilbrandt as the personnel guy, and you had Tex Schramm, who was the president general manager. Tex Schramm was a very good, a very good marketing guy. He knew how to run the franchise. He went to Roselle and he said, "Listen, we know the Lions play on Thanksgiving Day. Why? Because of that big parade they've always had in Detroit. That's the reason why the Lions got the game. Plus, the Lions were a very important franchise going back to the early years of the NFL. So they always played on Thanksgiving." He came up with the idea, how about a second game for TV and let us anchor it? They did that just at the time when they were starting to get good, just as the time as they had come up with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. Now you had this exciting team that was getting better, which had the uniform with the star, which had the significant head coach, had very good players, and had the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders playing these exciting games, and they were the second game on Thanksgiving, and it launched America's team. There's no question about it. And it was Schramm's idea, and it was a brilliant idea, and it really kind of changed the face of the NFL and changed the face of the Dallas Cowboys. So it's actually completely their thing, and it was Tex Schramm who did it. Uh, Jack, where would Earl Campbell fit in today's NFL? Um, he would be a better version of Henry, stronger, better version of Henry. That's what he is. One of the great backs of all time. Steve, as odd as it sounds, could you see a scenario next year where Bill Belichick and Aaron Rodgers team up somewhere? No, I don't see that. Bob, Neighbors is looking like Beckham too, with less talent. You put any of the blame on the head coach or GM for his big mouth? I do. Um, I think that these teams make a very, very big mistake. And I saw Tom Coughlin do it with Shockey. I saw Ernie Accorsi, the Giants general manager, do it with Shockey. I mean, they did it with Beckham. They allow these guys because they are enamored with their talent to run amok. First of all, neighbors, take care of yourself. Catch the ball. Concentrate. Stay healthy. Do the things you have to do to be a professional and to be a good one. We know he has a world of talent. Talent isn't enough. You learn that in the National. Talent isn't enough. And that's something you got this guy now as a rookie shooting his mouth off at the head coach. And the head coach tolerates it. That's why the head coach is in the position he's in right now, which is not good. Not good at all. And let me say this GM is out scouting. He was in Colorado the other day. He's looking for quarterbacks. Right now, the Giants could have the first pick in the draft for the first time in 60 years. Could happen. I don't think they'd be too upset if it happened. I don't know if there's a quarterback this year that you really love. I couldn't state that yet. Sometimes you can't state it even when the draft comes along. It's just too many variables and too many things up in the air. I don't see one guy that you go, there's no, to me, there's no Aikman, there's no Elway, there's no Luck, there's nobody like that in this draft. But he's out working, and Dable acts like someone who knows he's going to keep his job. Now, don't think that they have an endless supply of mistakes that they can continue to cash. They go out tomorrow and they get buried again. And I think they have a better chance with Locke to do better tomorrow because Tommy, while he gives the team a little spark, especially at home because of the fans, he is not an accomplished quarterback and he is a sack machine. He does not have the ability to get the ball off or to recognize what he's seeing. And he's getting sacked at an alarming rate. I think you will see the difference at quarterback, and you might actually see a good performance. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pretty snappy performance at Lock tomorrow. And that will set him up for the rest of the season, I think, if that happens. But should they get embarrassed tomorrow on national TV on Thanksgiving when the whole world is watching, when the whole league is watching? See, always be careful of an embarrassing performance when the whole league is watching, when they're not occupied in their own games. Monday night, Thursday night, Thanksgiving, holidays, because that's the way anything is. When it's the people who are your peers that you work with that are inside the same organizations, those people are acknowledging your futility and your embarrassment. That makes owners act. So, best thing for the Giants, the best thing for the Giants? Locke plays well. They put up 4 touchdowns and lose 29-28. That'd be the best thing because then they can say, we played hard and they didn't lose their spot in the draft. That's what they would like here, They would like close, exciting losses the rest of the way, let's be honest. They have no reason to win the games, but they don't want empty stadiums either. So they would like some excitement for some reason for you to go to the games. David starts getting 200 yards in receptions. He starts getting touchdown catches. They start scoring some points, but they still lose. They could live with that. They could absolutely live with that because they do want to get that quarterback. And to win a game and lose the commanding position of being able to pick anybody you want in the draft. Now, a lot of people will tell you that Travis Hunt is the best talent in this draft. The Giants have the first pick. They're taking a quarterback. They are not taking him. And remember that always, no matter who the player is, a quarterback can always supersede him. And a team that has the first pick that needs a quarterback will always select a quarterback unless there are absolutely none there. So the Giants are not going to use their pick, even on a Very unusual talent. Now, listen, I don't expect him in the NFL to play both ways. I don't expect him to do that. I don't think he's going to play corner and play wide receiver. I think he's going to play wide receiver. I'm not saying he wouldn't be ever in on defense, but he's not going to play a full slate. Like the other day, he played 130. A couple weeks ago, he played 132 plays in the game. They were trying to sell him as for the Heisman. That's why they did it. But that's not going to happen in the NFL. It's just not. So you have the Rodgers stuff as far as is he going to play these games? Are the Jets going to try and play spoiler here? I mean, I know they're not eliminated, but hey, they'd have to run the table, and they're not doing that. We've said that all along. And the last loss, really, for intents and purposes, I'm not even sure if they won them all, they'd get in. We know he's got a leg injury. I've said that for weeks. He clearly does. He hasn't even denied that, which is why he's getting rid of the ball quickly because he's not getting protected and because he's not using his lower body to throw the ball. So he's not getting the ball down the field. Still, he still is productive at quarterback, though. I mean, he has better numbers than Cousins. He has better numbers than Mahomes. And he hasn't even played. I mean, some people are telling you he's stinking the place up. By Rodgers' standards, he is. But by normal standards, he's not. Remember, they lost 2 games because of the field goal kicker and 2 games on the last plays of the game on defense. The Pat game and the Colt game, they lost on the last plays on defense, and they lost 2 games because of the field goal kicker. Those are 4 games. If they had those right now, they'd be fighting for a playoff spot. They'd have 4 losses instead of 7. I mean, that'd be a whole different deal if that was the case. I mean, 8, they're 3-8. So 3-8, they'd be 7-4. 7-4, they're right in the mix. Give them 3 of those. 6-5, they're still right in the mix. 3-8, they're not in the mix. I don't even know if 9-8 would get you in the playoffs. I don't think it would in the AFC. I think you're gonna have to win 10 games in the AFC to get in. I really do. So tomorrow again, you have how good are the Lions is your theme for game 1, and you get to see the number 1 pick and how he's doing. He's doing better since the offensive coordinator change. They're utilizing him a little differently. They're moving him more. They're giving him some design runs. He's also being more productive in the passing game. But the real story there is the Lions and how good they are, and the answer is really good. Game 2, you have Lock, banged up Cowboys, banged up Giants, Lock at quarterback. And then game 3, 2 good teams, 2 of the Dolphins hot, but walking into a frigid Green Bay, which is what you like to see, but not what the Dolphins like to see. That's for darn sure. And then Friday, the Chiefs and the Raiders, and who knows, Raiders might be so bad that the Chiefs can actually blow somebody out. Haven't done it. I mean, think about the last time Kansas City had a romping win. Long. I know they keep winning, but boy, they are getting diminishing production in a lot of spots, which has got to be driving Andy crazy. But they are 10-1. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll talk to you on Friday.